Some drivers smile through it, some deflect with a joke.
What, like raining or graining?
Graining.
And some, well, some just say, get out.
Throwing a journalist out of a media briefing ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix.
Formula One's press conferences have produced moments every bit as explosive as any race crash, and the drivers at the center of them are done playing nice.
But now that pisses me off.
From ice-cold one-word shutdowns
Just leave me alone, I know what to do.
to full-blown journalist ejections at Suzuka, these are the moments F1 drivers shut down disrespectful interviewers and refuse to apologize for it. Max Verstappen, the Suzuka ejection, March 2026. Let's start at the top. The freshest, the most brutal, and honestly, the most cinematic media confrontation Formula One has seen in a very long time. March 26, 2026, Suzuka, Japan. Media day before the Japanese Grand Prix. Red Bull star Max Verstappen flat out refused to begin his pre-race briefing until one journalist left the room. As soon as Verstappen walked into the Red Bull hospitality suite at Suzuka and saw Giles Richards from The Guardian, he stopped in his tracks. He did not beat around the bush. "I'm not speaking before he's leaving," Verstappen said, his tone ice cold. For a moment, nobody moved. The room went completely still. Every journalist in that suite just looked at each other. Nobody could quite believe what was happening. Richards' trip to Japan was the first time he had encountered Verstappen this year, and though 3 months had passed since their awkward spat in Abu Dhabi, it seemed clear Verstappen was nowhere near ready to forget. So what exactly set this off? The Abu Dhabi question referenced Verstappen's 10-second penalty at the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix for driving into the side of George Russell's car. The penalty dropped Verstappen from 5th place to 10th, costing him 9 championship points in a season in which he missed out on the title by 2 points after the final round. At Abu Dhabi, Richards had asked point blank,
You lost out to Lando by just 2 points. I'm just wondering what you think now about the incident with George Russell in Spain, whether you regret that, looking back on it in hindsight.
And Verstappen had snapped back, "You forget all the other stuff that happened in my season. The only thing you mention is Barcelona. I knew that would come. You're giving me a stupid grin now. The championship is one of 24 rounds. I've also had a lot of early Christmas presents given to me in the second half, so you can also question that." 4 months later, in Suzuka, the grudge was still burning. After being told he would not speak unless Richards left, Richards asked if it was because of the question in Abu Dhabi. Verstappen said it was. Richards asked, "You're really that upset about it?" To which Verstappen replied, "Get out. Yeah, get out." Marching orders received. Richards walked out. Verstappen was reportedly summoned to a meeting with Red Bull team principal Laurent Mekies on Friday, who, after giving his driver a chance to explain himself, is believed to have made it clear that Verstappen's actions did not reflect those of the team or their shareholders. When asked to explain himself later that weekend, Verstappen was unapologetic. "So it wasn't about the question. I always explained it very well about the thought process and what happened back then. But after the final race, when you ask that question, and you start laughing in my face while asking the question, and it's clearly done with bad intent to ask the question at that point, it shows a massive lack of respect. For me, when you're not respectful towards me, then I don't need to be respectful towards you. I think that's how it works. Life, it's very straightforward, very simple, and that's why I did that. Talk about scorched earth. And as for Giles Richards, he explained that he hoped to move on from the setback, signing off the piece by writing, "I still admire Verstappen, and I hope we can enjoy a better relationship in the future. Sometimes difficult, awkward questions have to be asked. That's the job that comes with the privilege." A certified paddock moment for the ages. Max Verstappen, the headbutt threat, Canada, 2018. But here is the thing. The Suzuka ejection was not some sudden change in Max's character. The man has form. Long, entertaining, deeply on-brand form. Let's rewind all the way back to the 2018 Canadian Grand Prix. Young Max, still making his name, but already done with stupid questions. When asked a similar question about his crashes during the official FIA press conference on Thursday morning, he said, "I'm getting really tired of all the questions. I think if I get any more, I might headbutt someone." He added that he had no intention of changing his approach, saying,
"I get really tired of all the comments of me, that I should change my approach, so I will never do that, because it's brought me to where I am right now."
And here's the magnificent part. The Press Association's Phil Duncan took the bait and actually returned to Max, asking him,
With the risk of being headbutted, Max, I was just wondering, do you think you can explain why you have had more crashes this year?
the audacity, the absolute audacity of that man. Phil Duncan, ladies and gentlemen, either the bravest or the most oblivious journalist in the sport, maybe both. When pressed again to explain his 2018 form, Verstappen answered,
It is all not that dramatic as people say it is and stuff. Yeah, of course, I haven't scored the points which I should have scored, but that was not only my fault. So, yeah, could have been better, but everybody makes it so dramatic.
a 20-year-old refusing to be bullied into a corner. You love to see it. Max Verstappen, the Sky Sports boycott, Mexico 2022. And then came 2022, Mexico City Grand Prix. Max was breaking records left and right. He had just become the first driver in Formula One history to win 14 races in a single season. But off track, he had officially had enough of one broadcaster. Verstappen and Red Bull boycotted all Sky Sports F1, British, German, and Italian stations across the Mexico City Grand Prix weekend. The boycott began when Verstappen was irked by Sky Sports journalist Ted Kravitz using the word robbed in relation to Lewis Hamilton when referring to the 2021 title race during his Ted's Notebook show from the US Grand Prix. Kravitz had also said that Verstappen doesn't seem to be a driver capable of winning a championship in a normal way. That was too far. After winning the race anyway, because of course he did, Verstappen explained himself in the post-race press conference, saying, "It had nothing to do with this weekend, but this year it's been a constant, kind of like being disrespectful daily, especially one particular person, and it's enough. I don't accept it. Social media is a very toxic place, and if you are constantly being like that live on TV, you make it only worse instead of trying to make it better. You keep disrespecting me, and at one point, I'm not tolerating it anymore." In an interview with The Telegraph, Kravitz later revealed details of the private meeting that ended the boycott. He and his colleagues held talks with Verstappen's camp in Brazil. Verstappen clarified that he did not personally care about what Kravitz had said. However, the comments had sparked fresh abuse towards his mother and his girlfriend, Kelly Piquet. That is why the Dutchman felt he had to take action. Now that reframes things, doesn't it? Cold, calculated, and protective. Not just petulant, principled. Kimi Räikkönen, the Iceman cometh. Okay, let's shift the energy entirely, because not every driver shuts down journalists with fire. Some do it with something far more devastating: silence, boredom, complete and total indifference. Enter Kimi Räikkönen. The Iceman famously has his own unique press conference style. Unimpressed by the banal questions from interviewers, he answers with the most deadpan quips possible. A reporter once asked him, "The helmet has a special meaning for many drivers. How important is it to you?" Kimi's response, "It protects my head." Another journalist tried to get something promotional. "What makes Tag Heuer special?" Kimi's verdict, "It's okay." Someone asked him to describe himself in one word. "Normal," Kimi said. The interviewer burst out laughing, completely baffled. And then there is perhaps the single greatest non-answer in television history. At the 2012 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, Kimi was in the middle of a race, comfortably in the lead, with his engineer feeding him data and strategies over the radio.
Just leave me alone, I know what to do.
What did Kimi say back? "Just leave me alone. I know what I'm doing." He then calmly won the race. The quote is still printed on garage walls, fan signs, and race day shirts today. But the press conference moments are where Kimi truly earned his legend. When asked whether his hunger for a second title was the same as his hunger for a first, Kimi just said nothing, stared at the interviewer, started some more. The moderator eventually said, "Fair enough," and moved on. Classic. When a journalist asked him whether he felt tempted to use the simulator to improve his car settings, Kimi's reply was instant: no. One word. The meeting adjourned. When the Pirelli tire compound question got pushed his way after none of the other drivers wanted it, he simply said, "No, I don't want to." Like he was refusing a second helping of something he never wanted in the first place. And who can forget Martin Brundle informing Kimi backstage that he had just missed a presentation by football legend Pele. Brundle said, "Kimi, you missed the presentation by Pele." Kimi's response, "Yeah, Brundle. Will you get over it?" Kimi, "Yeah, I was having." No filter, no apology, no remorse, just Kimi being Kimi, the most refreshingly honest driver in the sport's history. Lewis Hamilton, The Walkout, Japan 2016. Now, Lewis Hamilton. 7-time world champion, fashion icon, activist, media giant. A man who, for most of his career, played the media game brilliantly, charming in front of the cameras, generous with his time. But even the most poised driver has a breaking point. Back in 2016, he went head-on with the media panel after he claimed they disrespected him. Here is how it happened. At Thursday's press conference in Japan, Hamilton appeared to ignore the media and gave brief answers while taking pictures of himself and his fellow drivers with funny filters on the mobile app Snapchat. He posted a video of himself and fellow drivers with filters of cartoon animals laid over their faces, along with the caption, "This is killing me." The media went ballistic. Some sections called it a mockery of the press conference. Hamilton came back on Saturday, and he came in swinging. "I'm not here to answer your questions, I've decided." Silence. Then, with the utmost respect, there are many of you here that are super supportive of me, and those of you hopefully know that I know who they are. But there are others, unfortunately, that often take advantage of certain things. The other day was a super lighthearted thing, and if you thought that I was disrespectful, it was honestly not the intention. It was a little bit of fun, but what was more disrespectful was what was then written worldwide, and I'm just kind of in a position where, unfortunately, the decision I will take affects those that are super supportive. So that's why I say with the utmost respect. But I don't really plan on sitting at many more times for these kinds of things. Hamilton then left the briefing without taking any further questions. Later that evening, he went on social media to elaborate. "Today was meant to be fun, not at all disrespectful. Some people take themselves too seriously. It's not the media or mediator, it's the format. Fans should be asking the questions. Shots fired, quietly, eloquently, and completely effectively. That is the Hamilton way." Sebastian Vettel, the Grandmaster of Chaos. And then there is Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world champion, absolute genius on the track. And in press conferences, pure, unhinged, lovable chaos. From messing with his rivals, especially the Mercedes drivers, in press conferences to leaving the media in stitches, the German rarely failed to make everyone laugh, while even in the most serious of situations, Vettel always saw the lighter side. Let's talk about the graining incident first.
What, like raining or graining?
Graining.
You sponsored by Pirelli or?
At the 2019 Canadian Grand Prix qualifying press conference, a journalist stood up and introduced himself as a representative for a Spanish website called Graining. Sebastian Vettel was rather incredulous regarding the name, and he quipped, "Are you sponsored by Pirelli?" At that point, Lewis Hamilton, sitting right next to him, lost all his composure and began to laugh. Vettel sheepishly confessed, "I'm sorry I couldn't hold it. Was it a good one at least?" Before dissolving into giggles himself, roasted the entire room in seconds. But the truly legendary Vettel moment came courtesy of German journalist Walter Koster at the 2014 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Koster posed a question, which was timed at 1 minute and 7 seconds and counting, within which he found time to quote Niki Lauda, Sebastian Vettel, and Nico Rosberg, before eventually asking whether all the buttons inside the car make it too complicated. Unsurprisingly, the 6 drivers at the press conference were already trying desperately hard not to laugh.
Can you repeat the question?
But the whole room soon burst into laughter when the question ended and Seb asked the journalist if he could repeat it. The poor man had to repeat his entire 1-minute speech while everyone tried to hold themselves together. And then there was the time a reporter asked Vettel about his winter break plans at a pre-season press conference. Seb's response was to flip the question back immediately. "What are your plans?" The reporter was left completely flustered. That was the Vettel magic. Warm, witty, and surgically precise in the most charming way imaginable. Lando Norris, the Brazilian intervention. Now let's talk about Lando Norris. Generally, Lando is the cheeky, cheerful one, the meme machine, the guy who makes every press conference feel like a YouTube video. But even Lando has his moments. A Brazilian reporter was interviewing him when another journalist in the back suddenly interrupted with a rambling, multi-part question about game changers, prioritization, and testing protocols.
How are you going to prioritize, or how is it going to work with you to test everything, and still, do you think it will be a game changer or not?
Lando listened patiently. Then he looked at the journalist with a magnificent deadpan face and said,
Good question. You asked the best questions here. Hold on.
Long pause. That's a lie. The whole room exploded. Even the Brazilian reporter who was being interrupted could not keep a straight face. And then there was the Silverstone saga. In the build-up to what was expected to be a tense race with his then teammate or rival, reporters kept coming at Lando with the same wheel-to-wheel question, over and over again. Finally, he had enough. No, can we just already stop about this? Because we've had so many questions about this. It's just ridiculous, honestly. The whole Thursday we've been answering this all the time. So, can we just stop about it, please? Then, once composure was restored, he added simply, "We are racers. We will race. And of course, we're going to race hard, but fair. Short, sharp, done." Next question. Daniel Ricciardo, the Stroll meltdown. Here is one that many people forget, because Daniel Ricciardo is one of the most laid-back, lovable personalities in the pit lane. The grin, the shoey, the infectious energy. But after a collision with Lance Stroll, a different Daniel showed up entirely. A reporter ambushed him after the incident. Ricciardo had been trying to calm himself down. He said to himself,
"Okay, I had started to calm down."
And then the reporter informed him that Stroll was saying the crash was Ricciardo's mistake. Everything changed in that instant. The grin was gone.
But now that pisses me off because
Ricciardo fired back.
I watched his onboard. He's not even looking at me. We start to brake and his head starts looking at the corner. And then he starts to accelerate or come off the brake and then he's right underneath me. So that pisses me off.
You could feel the frustration radiating off him. No filter, no PR speak, no diplomatic language. Just a racing driver who felt genuinely wronged and absolutely refused to let a false narrative stand. Ricciardo gets credit for that one. Raw, honest, real. Fernando Alonso, the two-time champion who takes zero nonsense. Speaking of drivers who do not suffer fools gladly, Fernando Alonso, two-time world champion, relentless competitor. The man who once drove for 19 consecutive seasons in Formula One, returning again and again well into his 40s. And in press conferences, he has given us a catalog of iconic moments that could fill their own documentary. When reporters were given a wish list opportunity to ask F1's new owners for changes, Alonso jumped in immediately and demanded something radical. Another driver disagreed. Alonso simply stared at him. No elaboration, no argument, just the stare. But perhaps the most loaded question Alonso was ever asked came at the end of the 2007 season. His single, famously explosive year sharing the McLaren garage with Lewis Hamilton. Alonso had been asked if he had any advice for Hamilton. His response? Delivered with that perfectly dry Spanish smile. "Try to not be too aggressive in the first corner and let me go through." That is 2 years of tension, a multi-million-dollar legal dispute between McLaren and Ferrari, and one of the most fractured driver-team relationships in modern F1 history, compressed into one sentence. And there was the legendary press conference where a journalist asked Alonso whether he chose his teammate for the following year. Did he choose Jenson Button?
If you have the possibility to choose your teammate for next year, would you choose Jenson?
Alonso just started laughing. That quiet, knowing laugh that says everything a man does not want to put on record. Priceless. Ayrton Senna, the original media ice storm. And if we are talking about F1 drivers taking the gloves off in press conferences, we cannot skip the man who arguably invented the genre, Ayrton Senna. The 1989 season with McLaren was one of the most bitter, politically charged title battles in Formula One history. Senna and Alain Prost, teammates, champions, and absolute enemies by the end of it. When a journalist dared to ask Senna about his teammate, Senna did not deflect, did not smile politely, and did not offer a diplomatic non-answer. He said, with complete conviction, "I think if Prost wants to be called the sole champion and 3 times world champion and come back in a sportive way, maybe win another championship, he should be sportive. The way he's behaving like a coward. It's like if you're going a 100-meter sprint and you want to have running shoes and everybody else should have lead shoes. That's the way he wants to race. This is no racing. A coward, live, on camera, with Prost almost certainly watching. That is not shutting down a disrespectful interviewer. That is using the press conference as a weapon. Nobody did it quite like Ayrton Senna. The man raced the way he spoke, with total, fearless precision and zero regard for consequences. Felipe Massa, the conspiracy deflection. And sometimes it is not the driver who goes on the attack. It is the journalist who tries to blow up an entire team from within. At a press conference where Ferrari was riding high, a reporter turned to Felipe Massa and essentially suggested, on live television, that his own team had deliberately sabotaged him. The claim? That Ferrari had intentionally left his car short of fuel so that his teammate Kimi Räikkönen could benefit in the championship. The reporter framed it as a conspiracy, delivered with total conviction and zero evidence. Massa's response was beautifully measured. Yeah, but it was not on purpose. Pause. It was a misunderstanding. He refused to take the bait, refused to be weaponized against his own team. A lesser driver, in a more fragile moment, might have been rattled by that insinuation. Massa just shut it down with quiet dignity. The reporter pressed again. Pretty fundamental misunderstanding. Trying to reopen the wound. Massa held his ground. The story died right there in that room because one man refused to let it be born. From Verstappen's Suzuka ejection to Kimi's legendary silence, which of these driver moments hit differently for you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Grid Rivals so you don't miss the next ones.